Welcome to my channel. The story is about to begin.
In this game, each of the major starting classes actually reflects a miniature version of one of the major factions. For instance, the priest and paladin classes are associated with the Holy Temple Church, so their graduation mentors can be found at churches in the city. Meanwhile, assassins seek out the Shadow Guild, where thieves and assassins gather. Warriors head to the Mercenary Guild. Mages and wizards look for guidance from the Magic Association, and so on. As for the swordsmen and magic swordsmen, their mentors are typically located at the Swordsmen's Guild, also known as the Sword Court, a dedicated organization headquarters. One more thing worth noting is that most classes' exclusive combat skills can also be learned within the armies of various nations. By joining the military, you can acquire these skills at a much lower cost. However, once you join the army, your freedom is significantly curtailed. You can't just quit whenever you feel like it. Of course, Li Yi would never even consider joining the military. He simply can't stand being constrained. After making my way all the way to Jianting, I realized that it's actually a combination of a swordsmanship hall and an arena. From the outside, it looks like a sports gym, with sword-shaped sculptures standing at the entrance. Once inside, the space is spacious and well-lit. Many people are engaged in one-on-one duels, most of them practicing with wooden swords, though a few are fighting with real blades at full strength. Each strike fierce and precise, aimed straight at vital points, as if they harbored some deep-seated grudge or vendetta. Among them, there are also several individuals who clearly aren't swordsmen yet wield other weapons and perform all sorts of skills in the ring, battling fiercely and drawing huge crowds who stop to watch, cheering and shouting encouragement from time to time. Li Yi understood immediately upon seeing this. It seemed that, besides being a place where swordsmen could hone their skills, this place also served as a duel arena. Without lingering any longer, he approached an NPC dressed like a waiter, asked for directions, and then headed straight to an open, secluded training ground, where he found a man lying on a table fast asleep. Learning the first sword skill costs 10 silver coins. To learn the second one, you'll have to complete a quest first. If you don't have any money, just stop bugging me. Before Li Yi could even speak up, the slumped, brooding handsome guy, eyes still closed, yawned lazily and spoke in a nonchalant tone. He didn't even bother to lift his eyelids once throughout the entire exchange, radiating an air of utter arrogance. How disgusting. It's truly sickening to think I'd have to give gifts to someone like him. I've got the money. Can I learn a few more sword skills? No way. Each newbie is only allowed to learn one skill at a discounted price. That's the rule. Rules are made by people. After all, they're not set in stone. As he said this, Li Yi pulled out the bottle of liquor, uncorked it, and a faint, rich aroma of wine began to waft gently into the air. The slumped handsome guy sniffed the air with his nose twitching, finally opening his eyes and sitting up to look at Li Yi. Li Yi had never given gifts before and had no idea what the protocol was, so he simply handed over the bottle of liquor right there. Just bought it. Want to give it a try? The slumped, handsome guy's eyelids twitched slightly. Inside, he felt utterly speechless. Is this really how you bribe people? What a crude tactic. He quickly glanced around, snatched the bottle from the other person's hand, snapped the cap back on, and in the blink of an eye, the bottle had vanished into thin air. Ahem. Ahem, what are you talking about drinking? We're strictly forbidden from drinking alcohol during our shift. Next time, don't pull something like this again. As he spoke, he asked with utmost seriousness, You want to learn swordsmanship, right? First, tell me, what elemental affinity did you awaken? I'll recommend some techniques for you. Li Yi didn't hold back and said frankly, Light, darkness, water, and fire. What? I said light, darkness, water, and fire. The 4 elements, Li Yi repeated clearly. Gerard's spirits suddenly jolted, his expression finally turning serious as he said in a deep voice, Don't joke around about something like this. You've got to understand that the vast majority of people in this world can only possess a single elemental affinity. Liu knew that such a thing was indeed hard to believe, so he didn't waste any time. Instead, he immediately summoned the 4 extraordinary energies within his body, letting them subtly radiate from his skin. Instantly, Gerard's expression changed dramatically. He grabbed Liu's wrist in an instant, carefully feeling the energy flowing through him. His eyes grew even more horrified as he muttered, "Holy light power and dark magical energy, plus traces of water and fire elemental sources. You're still a priest? Dual class with 4 attributes. How could such a freakish combination possibly exist in this world?" He mumbled to himself, clearly struggling to accept what he'd just witnessed. After a long pause, he finally managed to suppress his shock, his gaze fixed on Liyue with a complex mix of emotions. He hesitated for a moment before finally speaking. For a newcomer to accomplish something like this, there's only one explanation. It must be your innate talent. Your talent is. Forget it. A magic swordsman can only awaken to the 5 elemental attributes of water, fire, ice, lightning, and wind. I've already taught you magic sword techniques for all 5 of those elements. As for light and darkness, there simply aren't any magic sword techniques associated with those attributes in this world. So choose 2 sword techniques from among the water and fire attributes. Speaking as he released Li Ye's wrist, he pulled out 2 thick leather-bound books, one blue, one red, and placed them on the long table where he'd just been sleeping. 2 disciplines? So I can learn another skill now? This wine really wasn't given away for nothing. Wait a minute. Li Yi glanced at him with curiosity and asked, "You said you could teach me sword techniques for all 5 elements. Does that mean you've mastered all 5 attributes yourself?" Gerard chuckled dryly. "Do you think everyone's as freakishly talented as you are? My only attribute is fire. I don't know any sword techniques from other elements. But the magic application techniques for lower-level sword skills all boil down to the same principle. As long as you follow the detailed instructions for each technique closely, even you rookies can definitely master them, if you just spend a little more time practicing. Once your strength improves and you're ready to learn higher-level elemental sword techniques, you'll have to head to the Swordsman's Guild in the big cities and find a high-level instructor who shares your element to get guidance. By then, it'll no longer be something you can handle with just a few silver coins." Only then did Li Yi suddenly realize something. His gaze unconsciously fell once again on the 2 thick books lying on the table, his eyes flickering with a hint of excitement. "So all I need to do is follow the step-by-step instructions in these skill manuals to master the basic sword techniques? Does that mean as long as I get my hands on these 2 books, I can teach myself and become proficient on my own? I could learn as many skills as I wanted, just pick and choose." Master Gerard, the magic sword instructor, noticed the look in Li Ye's eyes and seemed to read his thoughts right through. A faint smirk curled at the corner of his lips as he said, "I know exactly what you're thinking. But let me warn you, don't overthink it. For newcomers like you, without a mentor to guide you, the content in these books would be completely incomprehensible, let alone trying to teach yourself." He even added, with a touch more harshness, "In fact, I could put it even more bluntly. Even if I were to personally guide you through every single step of mastering fire-based sword techniques, I'd consider you gifted if you could learn them within 3 days." Li Yi curled his lip in obvious disbelief. "Is it really that hard to learn? Then I really have to give it a try." Saying this, he walked over to the table and began flipping through the books. He was both selecting sword techniques to learn and studying the detailed instructions for cultivating them. It wasn't until he started reading that he realized, though these 2 massive books seemed heavy and imposing, they actually didn't contain all that many sword techniques. The main reason was that the obscure animal hide paper was incredibly thick, the font size was rather large, and the pages were liberally dotted with illustrations. Moreover, even just the cultivation instructions for a single sword technique filled dozens of pages. So after going through an entire book, he'd only managed to learn about a dozen or so techniques at most. And the content covered by these techniques was remarkably intricate and complex. No wonder the mentor had said that a newcomer could never possibly succeed in self-studying, because even with the divine buff that reduced the learning difficulty of his innate skill by 80% thanks to the Order Sacred Body, there was still plenty of material he simply couldn't grasp, even when skimming through it quickly. If any other player were to take a look at this, they'd probably just stare at it like it were some kind of alien script. After reading it over and over again twice, he finally wore an expression of reluctant frustration, shook his head with a sigh, and closed the book, as if he'd resigned himself to failure. Nearby, Gerald, out of consideration for that bottle of magical fine wine, didn't press him further. He simply let him keep flipping through the pages, leisurely watching the changes in his expression as if he were watching a comedy. So, what do you think, genius? Did you finally get it? I guess I really did take it for granted too much. Well, young man, having ambition isn't such a bad thing after all. Who hasn't been full of youthful exuberance at one time or another? Come on, don't get discouraged. Pick 2 sword techniques you're really interested in, and I'll give you a proper lesson. Geralt seemed in high spirits, even reaching out to pat Li Ye's shoulder casually and offering a few reassuring words. Got it, Li Ye asked dejectedly. But I'm still not quite sure about the tactical effectiveness of these sword techniques, and I can't make up my mind just yet. How about you explain them to me one by one in detail? Then I'll see which sword technique suits me best. Upon hearing this, Gerard frowned slightly, looking a bit reluctant. Given his usual temperament, he'd never have been so patient, let alone take the time to explain each technique carefully to a student. If it had been any other apprentice, he'd have simply told them to cut the chatter and pick one already, so they wouldn't waste his time. And to think, he'd even go out of his way to introduce every single technique to them. Still, Li Yi was indeed different. Not only had he once treated him to wine, but he was also an unprecedented multi-attribute prodigy. So without realizing it, Gerard found himself being a bit more patient and didn't immediately snap at him. Seeing Gerard's expression, Li Yi whispered softly, "Master, as long as you're willing to help me, I'll bring you a bottle of fine wine every single day. The longer you teach me, the more times I'll show my gratitude, right?" Only then did Gerard's eyelids flicker slightly, and he put on a pretentious air as he scolded. "What wine are you talking about? Didn't I already tell you I don't drink during work hours? Cut the chatter, hurry up and sit down. I'll give you a thorough rundown of the tactical varieties of elemental sword techniques." Sure thing. Although tempted by the magical brew, Gerard was more than willing to share with Li Yi a few extra details about the sword techniques. Yet he was also smart enough not to go too deep into the core training methods and crucial insights before Li Yi had decided which 2 techniques he wanted to learn. Normally, there'd be nothing wrong with this approach, not even for newcomers from another world, let alone seasoned native magic swordsmen who'd been practicing for years. Under these circumstances, no one could possibly deduce the core techniques and master them through self-study. But what Gerard never could have imagined was that Li Ye's situation was anything but normal. Under the blessing of the Sacred Order of Order, he had already committed all the content to memory after just 2 cursory readings. Once seen, never forgotten. Now, with his mentor's detailed explanations of the fundamental principles and specialized terminology of swordsmanship, those previously incomprehensible concepts had been fully fleshed out, becoming the final missing piece in unraveling the intricacies of sword techniques. Little did Gerard ever suspect that this newbie, who looked utterly clueless and kept asking ignorant questions now and then, had secretly mastered the core knowledge and specific practice methods for over 20 elemental sword techniques. His only remaining hurdle was actual hands-on training. After peppering Gerard with questions for a full 2 hours, Li Yi realized that too much was as bad as too little. Pretending to be somewhat clueless, he casually selected 1 low-level fire-based and 1 water-based sword technique, paying 20 silver coins for them. The rest of the time was spent under Gerard's patient, step-by-step guidance as he practiced these 2 techniques. Li Yi continued to feign dullness, showing absolutely no sign of intelligence and progressing at a snail's pace. Gerald didn't suspect a thing. After all, in his view, this was perfectly normal behavior for a newbie rookie. An entire afternoon slipped by unnoticed, during which not a single player had shown up. It seemed most people didn't even realize they could seek out professional mentors to learn skills. Even those who did know probably hadn't yet managed to scrape together the 10 silver coins needed for tuition. Li thought to himself, "Looks like I'm actually making pretty good progress." As he pondered this, a sense of superiority welled up within him. With the sky growing darker, Li felt it was about time to wrap things up and stop pretending any longer. After Gerald demonstrated the technique once more, Li casually followed suit, swinging his sword with surprising force. The long sword, imbued with flames thanks to this sword edge enchantment, Fiery Rap's skill, suddenly unleashed a crescent-shaped blade of fire that spun rapidly as it shot outward. The blade carried an icy cold yet scorching edge, slicing effortlessly through the 10-meter distance before slamming into the wooden dummy target in the training arena. The impact left a deep sword mark, then shattered the dummy into countless fiery fragments that exploded in an instant, sending the dummy flying high into the air while simultaneously setting it ablaze, leaving it engulfed in roaring flames. Looking at its power, it's actually not much weaker than Gerard's. Ding! You've mastered the swordsman skill Moonblazing Slash, currently at level LV1. Your innate talent, Reversal Twin, has been activated. You've additionally unlocked a water element remote magic slash sword technique, Untitled, currently at level LV1. Ding! You're the very first player in this game to master a class-specific combat skill through training. You'll receive an additional random rare combat skill unique to your class. Ding! You're the very first player in this game to master a class-specific combat skill through training. You'll receive an additional reward. Your class's random rare combat skill will be upgraded to a random legendary combat skill. Reward granted. You've obtained the swordsman's spatial legendary combat skill, Dimensional Rift, currently at level LV1. Your innate talent, Reversal Twin, has been activated. You've additionally unlocked a time-based legendary sword technique, Untitled, currently at level LV1. Huh. Wait, there's an unexpected surprise. Li paused for a moment, visibly taken aback. Gerard, who had witnessed it all, was even more astonished than he was, his face frozen in a look of sheer disbelief as he turned to stare at him. You've actually learned it? Suppressing the excitement welling up inside him, Li replied with a somewhat dazed expression. I'm not exactly sure myself. It just felt like, suddenly, when I swung the sword, some kind of divine inspiration struck me. I just naturally started channeling my magic according to that feeling. And then, bam, the sword aura appeared out of nowhere. Instantly, Gerard's eyes lit up with a mix of confusion and admiration, muttering under his breath. Did a blind cat finally catch a dead mouse? Boy, you sure do have some luck. Then, with a hint of envy in his voice, he added, You must have had some sort of sudden enlightenment. I've heard about this phenomenon before, but most people never experience it even once in their entire lives. You're really lucky. Just remember this feeling. If you keep practicing a few more times, you'll probably master it completely pretty soon. Almost forgot. You guys are visitors from another world. Thanks to the blessing of the goddess Martha, once you succeed, even just once, you've effectively learned it already. So no need to practice anymore. Let's move on to learning your next sword technique. Hearing this, Lie's heart stirred, and he secretly noted down some of the words the other person had used. An outsider from another world. Could that refer to the player's background identity in the eyes of the NPCs? The blessing of Goddess Martha? That must be talking about the player's in-game system features. Come to think of it, the name of this game's intelligent AI core really is Martha. Without dwelling on these thoughts for too long, Lee quickly nodded and replied, Great. Then let's start practicing the next sword technique. I can't wait. The other person said, but the second sword technique you've chosen is the water-based Streamfloor Sword Dance, which is a close combat technique. You won't gain much experience from learning the Burn Moon Slash, so I'll only be able to give you verbal guidance. The learning curve will be much steeper. Be prepared for a long and arduous journey. Oh, okay, I got it. No way. You've learned another one already? You're feeling it again. Half an hour later, Gerard stared in disbelief at Li Yi, who was sheathing his sword right in front of him. Li Yi didn't say a word. He just nodded, his entire attention focused on the system prompt that had just sounded in his ears. Ding! You've mastered the magic swordsman skill Streamfloor Sword Dance, current level, LV1. Your innate talent, Reversal Twin, has been triggered. You've additionally unlocked the fire element close combat combo style elemental slash sword technique, Untitled, current level, LV1. That's it. It's really over already? Does that mean there's no reward for the second player to learn a combat skill? This game is being way too stingy. Oh well, if there's nothing, then so be it. Anyway, I still have more than 20 skills waiting for me to practice, and once I've mastered them all, the number will double to over 40. That should be plenty for the early stages, right? No way. What's going on with you, kid? How on earth did you manage to learn it? Gerard, still unable to accept what had happened, kept pressing him relentlessly. Li Yi turned to look at him, thought for a moment, then replied in a flat tone. I told you. I had another sudden enlightenment while practicing swordsmanship just now. Believe it or not. Gerard stared at him intently, his face etched with both envy and jealousy. What do you think? Li spread his hands wide. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Anyway, I really did learn it. That's just how geniuses are. If you've never had an enlightenment yourself, you wouldn't understand. It took all of Gerard's self-control to resist the urge to draw his sword and hack him to death. His expression grew grim as he asked, You've mastered both skills already? Then are you still coming tomorrow? They'd agreed that each skill would take at least 3 days to master, and together, the 2 skills would require at least 6 or 7 days. Plus, every day you were supposed to bring me a bottle of wine. And yet, you finished them both in less than a day? Then who's going to make up for the alcohol I'm missing? Li Yi, of course, knew exactly what he was thinking. Slapping his chest with a confident grin, he exclaimed, I've already learned everything. What's the point of coming here now? I already feel bad enough about teaching you just one more skill. I can't possibly let you keep breaking the rules either. Don't worry, buddy, he said with a carefree and generous air, turning on his heel and walking away. Gellet wanted to stop him, but deep down he knew there was no real reason to do so. All he could do was watch helplessly as Li Yi walked off, and the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. Why do I have this nagging feeling that I've really been taken advantage of? What exactly went wrong? As night had just fallen, Blackrock Keep was still bustling with activity. Most residents hadn't yet finished their busy day, yet restaurants and taverns everywhere had already opened their doors. The lively chatter of guests filled the air, and the tantalizing aromas of food and meat drifted through the streets, whetting everyone's appetite. As Li Yi walked along, nibbling on dry rations, he hurried to the church in the western district of Blackstone Keep, hoping to find a skill instructor for the priest profession. He still had to learn blacksmithing that evening, and time was running short. But it seemed that because he'd arrived late at night, the priest instructor wasn't actually at the church after all, meaning he'd come all this way for nothing. So NPCs in this world can move around freely. They don't necessarily stay put waiting for you, do they? Li Yi, having once again uncovered another gaming rule, asked the chubby little nun standing before him with a hint of reluctance. Excuse me, are there any other priests in the church who could teach me a skill? I'm willing to pay extra. If you could just introduce me to one, please. I'm a priest myself, one of the most devout followers of the Lord. We're fellow believers, after all. Please, I really need your help. Hearing this, the plump nun looked somewhat hesitant and said, It's not that I'm unwilling to help. It's just that besides Father Khan, our church has only one full-time priest left. But her situation is a bit unusual. She holds an extremely high position, and Father Khan specifically instructed us never to disturb her casually unless absolutely necessary. Upon hearing this, Li Yi immediately slipped a silver coin into her hand and said with a meaningful tone, Beautiful and kind sister, just tell her that there's a devout believer with exceptional talent who, guided by the Lord, has come here seeking the help of our Lord's shepherd. After that, whether or not she chooses to see me is entirely up to her own will. I won't blame you in the slightest. Please, do me this favor. The plump nun ran her fingers over the silver coin in her hand, then quietly tucked it away. Well, I'll mention it to Lady Tia. If she's not willing, there's nothing I can do about it. Sorry to trouble you, sister. After waiting just a brief moment, the nun came running back with a hint of excitement and said to him, Miss Tia has agreed to see you. She told you to go straight into the confessional and find her. A confessional? Li didn't give it much thought. Following the nun's directions, he made his way to a small room at the back of the church. As soon as he stepped inside, he saw a tall, slender nun in a flowing white robe, her figure voluptuous yet strikingly graceful, standing with her hands clasped in prayer beneath the statue of the deity, facing away from him. Her silky golden hair fell naturally and straight down her back, and even her ample white robe couldn't quite conceal her breathtakingly beautiful physique. Just by her back view alone, she was an exceptionally captivating beauty. What's more, she seemed to radiate a faint aura of holiness and spiritual presence, a presence that drew you closer yet inspired awe. making you instinctively reluctant to harbor any disrespectful thoughts. Li Ye's gaze was naturally drawn to her, and without hesitation, he took one long, admiring look, then another, and yet another. Bribing clergy is a violation of church doctrine. You, this self-proclaimed devout but misguided believer, should now kneel before the statue and sincerely confess your wicked deeds, humbly reflecting on them. A melodious, ethereal voice rang out, imbued with a sacred aura that seemed to cleanse the soul. Li Yi withdrew his gaze from the beauty before him and stepped forward, approaching her side. His eyes fixed on the statue, he spoke with righteous conviction. To label a sincere gift and fair compensation as bribery, thus framing an earnest, kind nun and a devout believer eager to serve our Lord in an unjust light. Lady, don't you think it's your own actions that constitute a true sin? Upon hearing this, the girl opened her pale golden, crystal-clear eyes and tilted her head slightly toward Li Yi. For a moment, she seemed utterly lost and bewildered. After a long pause, she mumbled softly under her breath, "Is that really how it is?" At last, Li Yi could clearly make out her features, and was dumbstruck by her exquisite, breathtaking beauty. Yet what he felt most deeply was a mixture of exasperation and amusement. You're not even sisters. You started off acting so high and mighty, yet now you're completely at a loss, unable to utter a single coherent word. Hey, human machine, with that kind of eloquence and brain power, you actually think you can pull one over on me? Couldn't you just be a little more sincere? Who's your little sweetheart, anyway? No one wants you, so don't try to swindle me away. Don't worry about trifles like that. The money entrusted to the faithful ultimately goes straight to honoring God himself. The faithful's money is God's money. After all, as long as everyone's a follower of the Lord, it doesn't really matter whose hands it ends up in. Seeing how gullible she looked, Li Yi casually tossed out a remark and revealed his real intention. My name is Yi Li, and I'm a newly ordained apprentice pastor here to learn divine arts. Could you please teach me? The blonde-haired, golden-eyed girl was still pondering the validity of the statement. The faithful's money is God's money. When she heard his request, she instinctively replied, Pastor Khan, who's responsible for mentoring new recruits, is out on a call right now. He should be back later. Maybe you could just wait until tomorrow instead. No way. Li Yi looked at her with a serious expression and lied smoothly. It was the Lord who guided me here to elevate myself. I simply must achieve something today. Only then can I live up to the Lord's grace. The young girl was instantly shocked, covering her mouth in astonishment as she exclaimed, The Lord guided you here? Could it be that you've received a divine oracle? How on earth is that possible? Li Yi nodded firmly. That's right. Just after I arrived in this world today, I've already had a series of incredible adventures. On my very first day, I earned enough money to far outpace everyone else. If that's not a blessing from the Lord, what could it possibly be? As he spoke, he turned his head toward the statue of the deity with an air of deep reverence, his voice fervent and unwavering. The Lord must have great expectations for me. I absolutely must seize every moment to master the divine arts and spread his light as quickly as possible. Only then can I truly live up to the Lord's hopes. Indeed, he really needed to hurry. According to the earlier prompt, players who were the first to learn a skill in their respective classes would receive an extra reward in the form of a rare skill. So naturally, the sooner he started learning skills, the better. The young girl didn't know what he was thinking, but the name of the deity was simply too powerful. She couldn't help but take it seriously. Yet as she looked at him, her exquisitely pure and holy face grew even more solemn. It seemed as though she'd just activated some divine spell. Her eyes suddenly lit up with a divine glow, and she began scrutinizing Li Yi closely. Instantly, Li Yi felt an eerie sensation, as if some indescribable, immense power were scanning him from head to toe, seeing right through him. A chill ran down his spine, and he couldn't help but mutter inwardly, Did I overdo it? What if the girl realizes I've been lying by invoking the deity's name? Will she just unleash a high-level divine spell on me and reduce me to ashes in an instant? Fortunately, after a brief moment, the young girl withdrew the divine light from her eyes and nodded solemnly, saying, I can sense the power of order within you. If this blessing is something you've just received today, then our Lord's favor toward you truly is unparalleled. All right, she continued. Since you've been chosen by our Lord as the one destined for this path, I'll do my utmost to assist you. You want to learn divine arts, huh? According to the church's rules, you're not supposed to break them. But then again, there isn't absolutely no way around it. If you don't mind, I could take you on as my disciple and serve as your guide on the sacred path. That way, I'd be able to teach you divine arts in a completely legitimate and compliant manner. As soon as he finished speaking, a flurry of notification tones suddenly rang in Li Ye's ears. The Holy Cathedral Church's preparatory Holy Maiden, 7th grade Temple Knight, and 7th grade High Priestess, Sacred Radiance Platinum Dragon Knight, and Dawn-colored Hestia's Saint Cyrene wishes to take you on as her disciple and serve as your exclusive guide. Do you accept? Li Yi was instantly stunned. No way. With such an impressive string of titles being thrown at me like that, if I were to refuse, wouldn't it make me look ungrateful and unreasonable?